Hi everyone, I'm Rachel from Desert Blossom Crafts. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a super simple and fast crocheted cowl. It's called the Wintergreen Cowl and it is made only from chains and slip stitches. So like I said, it works up so fast and it uses only simple stitches, so if you're a beginner, this will be perfect. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, so here we have our materials. To make this cowl, all you need is bulky yarn. So I am using Bernat Softy Chunky yarn. It's a weight number 6 and I recommend using a weight number 6 for this cowl. And then the hook I'm using is a K hook or 6.5 millimeter. So to begin, you're going to make a slip knot. And like I said, this only uses chains and slip stitches. So to begin, you're going to chain 72. So we're basically making it a big round starting chain that we're going to join together and then continue to work off of that. Okay, so you can see here I finished my 72 chains, and the next thing we're going to do is slip stitch them together. But just one note before we do that. This is an adjustable pattern, so once you make your chain, be sure to try it around your head and see how far down in your neck it goes. You can adjust the length by doing the chain in multiples of 8. So any multiple of 8 will work for the pattern. I just happen to like it at 72, but you can try it on and decide to change that. But once you've decided how many you're going to do, we're just going to join these two ends with a slip stitch. So make sure that it's all evened out and it's not twisted. Okay, and then just grab your end here, and to make a slip stitch we're just going to go in the first chain here. So I've inserted my hook. Next I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull through. Now I have 2 loops on my hook, and next I'm not going to yarn over again, I'm just going to pull through that last hook, so it becomes like a stitch that just slips right through and it's not super noticeable. So now we have the beginning of our cowl here. Okay, so what I teach you next is basically going to be what we repeat for the rest of the pattern. So this is our row number 1. So we've already done our chain, but this is like our row 1. You're going to start by chaining 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Next, we're going to skip 7 chains of this foundation chain we made. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then in this 8th one, I'm just going to make another slip stitch. So I'm going to take this, come down here, insert my hook into that 8th chain, and make a slip stitch. So this is our first little loop we've made, and we're going to repeat that across the entire row. So let me show you again. We're going to chain 9 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we're going to skip 7, 3, 6, 7, and make a slip stitch in the 8th one. So now I've made 2. Let's do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Skip 7. So see, here's the slip stitch I made, so I'm just going to count 7 from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then in this 8th one, we're going to work our slip stitch. So now I've made 3 loops, and I'm just going to keep repeating that across the entire foundation chain. Okay, so now as you can see, I've gotten all the way around except for my last loop here. So I just wanted to show you how to do this last loop because it's just a little bit different from the other loops. Or it's going to start out exactly the same. So I've just made a chain 9 loop. I'm going to make one more chain 9 loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have my 9 chain. But this time, instead of going in the last chain here, we're going to go in the first slip stitch that we made. So not the chain, but you can see where this first chain 9 loop is. Here's the slip stitch we made. So here's the first chain, here's the slip stitch. So you can kind of tell because it's right where the starting end comes from. So this end right here. So we're going to go through both loops of the slip stitch. So you can see I have gone under the slip stitch, and I'm just going to make a regular slip stitch in the slip stitch. So pull through and pull through that loop. So now I've completed my first row of the Wintergreen Cowl. So this is kind of what it should look like. It could be bigger or smaller if you've decided to adjust the length. Okay, so now let's start row 2. And it's very similar to the row we just did. The only difference is that we'll be joining the loops in the slip stitch we just made. So let's get started. You're going to chain 9 again. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're going to skip this loop and you're going to work in this slip stitch right here. So just so you can see where we are, here's the beginning, here's our chain 9, here's the loop. We're skipping that loop and we're going right in this slip stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook. Maybe a little bit difficult to get it in there, so just don't pull your slip stitches tight because then it will be difficult to insert your hook. And then I'm just going to make a slip stitch. So now you can see here I have 3 chain loops rather than just 2. I'm going to keep repeating this across the row. So chain 9, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Skip this loop and slip stitch in our slip stitch right here. So now I've finished 2. Okay, so as I mentioned, you're just going to keep repeating this around the whole circle. So here I have a chain 9, I'm just going to slip stitch it here. I'm going to keep doing that. Chain 9, slip stitch, chain 9, slip stitch, chain 9, slip stitch, all the way till I get back around to the beginning and I have 3 loops on each one. So this is round 3, and you're actually going to keep repeating this round until you have 11 rounds all finished. Another note about adjusting, you can do less or more than 11 rounds. So here's the one I showed earlier with 11 rounds, and some people might like a wider or thicker cowl. So you can totally do more. You could do 15, however many you want, it doesn't matter. But the next thing I'll show you is the last round. So however many rounds you do, there is one round at the very end that you'll have to finish with. Now just one more note about working these 11 rounds, or however many you decide. After a while it can get difficult to tell where the end is. Of course you could always just count the loops, but it may be helpful if you put a stitch marker in. So to do that, I would just find the slip stitch that is at the beginning of the round and just take a piece of yarn. You can use an actual stitch marker, but I just use yarn. Just stick it in here so that it marks your place so you easily know when you've come to the end of the round. So here I've finished 3 rounds, but remember you now can work 11 or more rounds, however many you decide. Okay, so here we go. I have finished my cowl except for the last row. I actually decided to do 14 rows before the last row this time. So like I said, last time I did only 11, but this one I wanted to make it a little bit bigger. So as I said before, you can feel free to do as many rows as you'd like also. But so now that I am satisfied with how big it is, we're just going to do one last row. And it's basically the same thing, there's just one small difference. Instead of chaining 9, we're going to chain 8. And the reason is because as you keep going, you can see it starts to expand and kind of work its way this way. So we kind of want to just bring it in a little bit. And that's why we're going to do one less chain than usual. So I'm just going to chain 8 this time. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do the same thing and just slip stitch in the slip stitch and continue to repeat that around. 5, 6, 7, 8. Do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm just going to keep repeating that around, doing 8 chains rather than 9. Okay, so here we are. I've finished all 15 rows that I decided to do. The last row has only 8 chains around. As you can see, I have cut my end, and we're just going to fasten it off by putting it backwards through the loop and pulling tight. So just a few finishing tips before we are all done. One thing you can do to help the volume of the cowl is to kind of take the places where the slip stitches are and just stretch them, because they tend to come back on themselves, but you can just go all the way around and stretch it, and it will just help the overall volume of the cowl when you wear it. One other thing, this, not where you started, you can see it looks just a little bit uneven because of how a slip stitch lays. So when I weave in this end, I'll just bring it up here to make the chain loops even. But the last thing to do is to just weave in those ends. One tip, because the yarn is so bulky, it can be difficult to weave in the ends with a yarn needle. So I like to do it with my crochet hook. So here are my 2 finished wintergreen cowls side by side. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you want the written pattern to go along with it, be sure to check out the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to make sure you see lots more videos.